Aloha and welcome to Connection to the Cosmos with your host, me, Dr. Lisa Thompson, where I have out-of-this-world conversations with extraordinary people. And today my guest is Liz Perlin O'Hara, and we're going to bring her on in just a moment. But first, a couple of announcements. If you haven't yet, grab my free 20-minute meditative journey to meet your galactic family and guides. Make sure you grab that on my website, mysticmanta.com or drlisajthompson.com. And if you're coming to Hawaii, specifically to the Big Island, Kona side, come on one of my Big Island UFO tours where you will be able to experience the night sky in a whole new way using my advanced Generation 3 military night vision goggles. And more information on that, my website is bigulandUFOtours.com. So without further ado, we're going to bring Liz on the screen. Hi, Liz.
Hi.
So let me share. Yeah. Well, thank you for being here.
Yeah, and thank you for having me.
So let me share with our audience your bio, because I think we're going to have a really fun conversation. I'm looking forward to this. So Liz Perlin O'Hara is an energy healer, medical intuitive, artist, Reiki master, and interdimensional healer. She helps intuitive healers who passionately help others, but still feel blocked in their own lives, and are looking to go from struggling with uncertainty to stepping into their best life by removing the blocks that are still keeping them from living their heaven on earth. She's helped hundreds of people heal from physical and emotional pain, and as a recognized artist turned energy healer, turned energy healing artist, she's discovered the power of her channeled fine art frequency healing portals to attune her clients to the exact frequencies they need to heal and expand. Well, that sounds really interesting. I look forward to hearing more about that. So
Thanks.
First, though, I would love to understand your background, like how you grew up, spiritual, religious, something else. How did you get into the work that you do?
So this is kind of interesting because I actually kind of knew that you were going to ask this question because I listened to some of your other interviews, and this sort of moment came to mind. You know how like there are these moments where like a thought or a sentence stick out to you, like just sort of out of space and time.
Yeah.
And so I don't remember like a lot about my childhood in certain ways, but I remember being probably around the age of 7, and I was at religion, and I'm pretty sure it was the story of Jonah and the whale. And the kids all started asking the teacher like these questions about, but how, like, you know, about the mechanics of it, right? Yeah. And I think whatever answer she gave was just to like move on to the next topic. And I remember thinking to myself, like, oh, I get it. They're just stories. And I had this sort of disconnect. So I feel like I spent most of my life as an agnostic. And so because I was thinking about this morning, I was reminded of something else, which is like when my intuition opened. So my intuition turned off pretty early. I know this now, having reopened it and reconnected with it. Yeah. And when it first reopened, I was told, and I usually say I'm guided to do things, but I was told to read the Old Testament. And so I feel almost like, you know, for anyone who does energy healing, like there's these parts of us that are like turned off to be held for us for a later time. Yeah. And I almost feel that way about this. Like this was an opportunity for me to sort of be ready to like understand it as it was given to me as an adult, you know. And that's not to say that I haven't had like these moments along the way of sort of spirituality, but anyway, it made me think about that. In terms of my family, like I grew up in a pretty intellectual like typical suburban household. And I don't know exactly why I felt the need at a young age to turn off my intuition. I've only been exploring that for the last 5, 10 years, but there's something about that. Um, but I was also reminded as I was, my mother is an intuitive person, like and for all the ways that she's, I'm not sure if I'm answering your question fully, but
Just
but
keep.
these little stories came to my mind about like she would like often answer the phone and say, I was just thinking about you. Or she'd wake up in the morning and, say to my father, like, I visited with my brother last night, as opposed to I had a dream about him. And so there were these things that I had never really put together that, um, like even just little stories like I went to the bank and I took out $300. Like, I don't know why I remember this one, but I went to the bank and I took out $300. And would you believe I broke down and they towed my car, and when I got to the lot, they said, oh well, that'll be $300. And like, those are, I never connected that with intuition before, but that I don't know what that's about, but for some reason I was like protecting this part of me so that it could
Interesting.
come to me at the right time. Does that make sense?
Okay, it does. Well, so
Yeah.
yes, what did you do in between? Like, did you have another career at first before you decided to shift into this?
I did. So I went to art school. Actually, that's sort of interesting too. So I went to art school. This sort of falls into the religious category as well. And it has to do with a bit of being like, outside of it in a way.
Mhm.
In the sense that so I went to art school for some time, and I was an art teacher for over 20 years.
Okay.
And then we may circle back to this later, I'm not sure, but there were some events that sort of took me down this other road. Um, but even that, like, learning art history, like I had these great opportunities to travel and see, churches and the artwork in the churches. And,
Mhm.
centuries ago, the congregations didn't read. And so the artwork was their, tool to know the stories. And there was this common language in the visual images. And I really connected with that too as part of, my artistic language, I guess you could say. I feel
Okay.
like that may be relevant as we get into the
Yeah.
channeling that I'm doing now.
Well, yeah. I mean, being an artist definitely is a channeled kind of thing. I fully believe. Whether
Yeah.
like creating art, being a songwriter or chore. Oh, you disappeared for a moment.
I know, I know.
Okay, you're back.
I don't know what that is. I'm sorry.
But anyway, so again, whether you're a songwriter, a choreographer, you're creating some kind of art form, that is a sense of channeling, or you're writing. So I would love, yeah, if you want to go into that now, we can go.
Sure. No, I'm realizing that more and more because I left it for a while. It's
Mm,
like I just wasn't connecting with making things anymore for quite some time. But I'm realizing now that in my 20s, when I was doing that work, I didn't know that was channeling, but there's a zone that you get into, right?
yeah.
Um, and so now one of the main things that I do make, pieces that are more generic, but I do a lot of commissioned work where I channel for people. And I get into sort of this state almost like where the energy just comes through. Um, and I record it. I record what comes through as a physical, um, almost like a sculpture of energy.
Okay.
Um, Yeah. And so I record those as photographs. And in the beginning I would edit them. And I don't edit them anymore. Because I feel like, when you're saying that they're channeled, it's like it's almost like it's given to me. And it's, it's like this nothingness that I go into. And it's not nothingness, it's a vastness, right? Or a stillness that is given to me. I feel like, and I didn't start out doing that. I did channeling for healing first for some time, and then this sort of just broke back open for me. So.
Okay, well, so then let's back up a little. So how did you get into the more of the healing, the channeling of the healing work that you do?
Yeah, so another one of those moments. Okay, let's see. So my husband had some things happen that brought him into sort of this severe illness. And he was somehow guided to go to this shamanic practitioner, and I went with him. And when he left, and this wasn't the end of the road, this was the beginning, but he was literally 3 inches taller. And I was like, wow, there's something to this, like you could see that whatever she took from him did something, right? And so I ended up like starting to become open to it, interested in it, and exploring different things. I learned how to do shamanic journeying. I went to these things called systemic family constellations, and I was still teaching. And then I started, I've got attuned to Reiki and so on. And then actually, this is interesting because we moved and I took another teaching job, but I knew that I was supposed to be doing something else. So I said I was going to stay at that job for 3 years, and I ended up staying a 4th year. And the 4th year, like almost immediately, I got really, really sick. Like I ended up being undiagnosed Lyme disease, but I was so sick that like my knees swelled up. I had to have them drained. I couldn't walk. Like it was really something. Like I haven't experienced anything like that before, and so I decided I was going to, become a Reiki master. I wanted to learn theta healing, and I wanted to start doing things so that, first of all, I could get better. And secondly, that I didn't have a job that was so like physically, demanding, because I couldn't do it. But it's like whatever gets you there, right? Because the coursework that I was doing included these like DNA activations and light language activations, and I was like, that's nice. I'm going to do my NLP, my theta healing. I really like timeline therapy. That's cool. But like then it just, guess what? Like that's the thing that like I feel like I can't do without. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. And then it just sort of snowballed from there. So I actually heard on one of your interviews that you were talking about how your hands activated for light language. Yeah. And so that was my first thing that happened for me. Was, when I worked on people, there was always like moving the energy with my hands, and I didn't even know it was light language. I just was doing it. And now I'm like much less shy about it. Like I just do it while I'm having conversations, not with anybody, but if I'm working with somebody and so on. And what I really learned was to follow my intuition. And so then there are a few more things that happened after that that kept leading me down the road to where I am now. So,
Okay, well, go ahead and share if you want
okay,
to what those
cool.
are. Yeah.
All right. So the first thing that happened was, well, I'm just going to say this because I feel like it's relevant. So I was already in like my early 40s when my intuition sort of really started to come, like I was getting information all the time. And I actually didn't say this part earlier, but part of my motivation was I really needed to get trained on what to do with it, because at times it would kind of be overwhelming, right? And so it's like, um but one of the messages I got was that I was going to have another baby, and I already had 3 kids, and I was, then I turned 44, and then I turned 45, and I was like, okay, I'm not going to have another baby.
I mean, I'm 50. I'd be like, no.
Well, this I think is kind of interesting. So do you know IET, integrated energy therapy?
I don't know.
It involves like body work and also an attunement, but it's not quite like Reiki. And I was looking up something. I mean, this is how I find so many things. Like I was looking up something random online, and this course popped up in front of me. Like this woman popped up in front of me, and I was like, um, I called her, and as soon as I talked to her, I'm like, I need to do that. Like, I need to go there. Now, she was like 5 hours away. I already had 3 kids. Like, I wasn't a person who was just going to pack up and like, rent a car for the weekend and go. But
Yeah.
I knew I was supposed to go um, to this training.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and oh my gosh, I don't know what I mean, it was a small group, but I don't know what they thought of me, because like I feel like there was this one point at the second day where all of a sudden, like, like you had to do this sort of, like inner work also. And I just said, I don't know who I am. And I just started crying. And then she gave out the awards and she had to take a picture of me. And I was like, but something just like, cracked open. And so there's this attunement. And I know we're here to talk about, um, you know, um, certain topics, or
No,
doesn't
it's all
matter. Okay.
the same.
Well,
As long as it's in the spiritual realm and it educates people, we're good.
awesome. Well,
Yeah.
so this woman, it turns out, happened to be, part of the like active in the Lumerian sisterhood. And I didn't know anything about that at all. And it was another like, oh, that's nice, right? When
Mhm.
she did the activation on me at the attunement, I had so much energy in my hands. Like I didn't know what to do with it. I don't know what to do with this energy, like where to put it. So it turns out, and I didn't know this until a few months later, that I had conceived like the week before I went to this retreat. And
Okay.
I wasn't like actively, like trying to get pregnant, but I didn't even realize that until like, down the road.
Mhm.
And I don't know if I want to say this about her, but I do feel like she's got this very strong energy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
My daughter, she's 1 now. And when I was pregnant, I had some other healers who said the same. And then I feel like it's part of why. It's not the only reason why, but it's certainly a big part of why I drove 5 hours to go sit with a group of strangers for something that I didn't even know what it was.
Well, I mean, one of the things, what I love about that so much is that, so my guess, I don't know if you know your human design, but my guess is you're either a generator or manifesting generator, and you have sacral inner authority based on
Mm,
how quickly you made that decision. And so, and I resonate with that because when I first came across past life regression therapy, I didn't, I was in this group session with Denise Lynn. I had never heard of her before. But after that one thing, I'm like, oh my God, I need to learn how to do this from that lady right there.
right, right.
And so the next month, I was at her house getting trained. So, and I didn't know how I was going to make it happen, but I just knew I had to be there. So I totally
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And that's the biggest gift of like having the intuition. And actually, as sad as it is of not having had it for so long, because I know what it feels like when you're getting a message and you just sort of push it away and say, that doesn't make sense.
yeah.
And it's, there's a certain flow to saying, okay, that doesn't make sense to me right now, but if I'm supposed to do this, like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
supposed to do this.
Yeah. Well, and for people listening or watching, like, yeah, think about that. How many times in your life have you turned to logic or fear? Like, that doesn't make sense. I don't know how I'm going to make something happen, or like, or even staying in a situation that's really toxic or unhealthy and overriding your own intuition.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so anyone who can really help others, like you're doing and I'm doing, to help tap into that intuition that everyone has,
Mm-hmm.
or we can be in flow with the universe and have a beautiful world.
Yeah, absolutely. That's beautiful.
So, well, okay. So now with the work that you do, how do you decide what someone needs? Or do they say, I want this kind of session with you?
Okay, so that's a good question. So I typically work with, I mean, I'm happy to help everyone, but I typically work with intuitive healers.
Mhm.
Um, and this is actually a nice segue, I feel like, from what you were just talking about. Because I feel like for many of us, it is easier or more natural to read somebody else's energy and
Mhm.
sort of go in and soften or smooth or release whatever it is that needs to be healed. And like we all need a hand, you
Yeah.
know, especially when it comes to our own fields, I guess you could say, or our own sort of struggles.
Hmm.
Um, and so I'm going to tell you that I forgot the question. Sorry.
You were going to tell us how you work with clients. Like,
Okay.
yeah, in
Yes.
terms
And so I use like the framework of theta healing. That's typically how we begin. So I'll connect with their energy, call in guides, ancestors, and so on. And then, we usually talk first so that they say what's going on.
Mhm.
And then we sort of spend a bit of time finding what the root is, like what the real thing that it's stemming from, or if it's a broader thing, or if it has to do with beliefs that need to be cleared, or trauma, or um, ancestral patterns, and so on. Um, and so then we can continue to work in sessions where I do use a lot of light language. Um, and it's so interesting to me how everybody's energy is different. Like it's such a gift that I like that people allow me to experience that with them, because it's like I can't explain it, but it's like I have just been amazed by what it feel like, what some people's energy feels like, and I leave saying, well, I've never felt that before. But it's not about me, right? It's about like moving, releasing, shifting, and so on. So that's one way that I work. And then the other way I work is through portals. I call them portals because that's our universal language. What it really is that an opening of space. So if like you and I were working together,
Mhm.
um, and let's say I were doing straight Reiki on you, right? Because that's something we can kind of all understand. Like I put my hand up and I'm like, allow the energy to move and release and so on in your field. Well, this is tapping into your energy and opening a channel outside of you that allows everything to continue to flow
Mm.
until it needs to be resolved. So after we've spoken, in finding those sort of nuts, right? Like maybe two or three, like real, um, that will help the client get out of what they want or into what they want, ideally both, right? I set intentions and then I channel a series of healings for them to create this channel. It's a funny word to use, but it's like that, or a funnel that allows them to continue to like breathe in the energy that we've called in as long as they need to. Um, and and I record it. That's where the art piece comes in. And so I open the shutter and I put lights on my fingers and I it almost feels like sculpture, right? Like I'm moving everything. And I get into this state where I know it's not my energy at all. Like it's what's being given to them.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's one image in the series of healings that I do that typically comes forward to represent um, the entire whole of the healing. Um, and I talk about frequency when I talk about my artwork. Again, a word that's sort of a common language, but it's getting you out of this and then into this new energy or this new state by allowing that continuous flow to be like the new air you breathe. That's
Okay.
sort of how I see it.
Okay.
Um, and it helps people, which is like when I first started doing it, like I was always amazed, like this is helping you. But I've had people come back for more because once they're in that new, place, now it's time for something else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm still trying to I'm just wrapping my mind around like the art that you're creating from this. Like what does that look like?
So it's a digital image. So like you see me doing this,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
And so actually I have like a group healing sessions where I don't record a visual image.
Okay.
I but I do the same work,
Got
right? With the group, whatever the group intention becomes,
it. Okay.
okay? Um and um but what I do when I make an image is I will put lights however I'm guided, whatever colors, whatever, you know, just in certain places. And then
Mm-hmm.
I do this same work and I open the shutter and I record a series of images
Okay.
as I'm doing the healing.
Okay. When you
And
say shutter, you're talking about the camera shutter.
the
That's
camera shutter.
okay.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
that I was like the window shutter.
Oh,
I'm
I'm
like
sorry.
that's why I'm just trying because I want people to understand what you do too.
Yeah.
So unique, right? Or different. I've never heard of that. So yeah.
Yeah, I got it's one of those things that, somebody else told me first that I was making these portals. And then I went to this retreat and I spent so much of my life, I feel like I referenced this earlier, saying I used to be an artist.
Mhm.
And when I did this coursework around healing, and when I left, like people would get on, we would meet for like these business groups and people would say, well, art therapy is so important and you've worked with children, and I would just like blanketly be like, no, I'm not. That's not. I'm doing this now, I was just, and then something like opened, and I just decided to experiment with this and play with it. And like I said, it was helping people. And
Mhm.
so now it's like, you mean I get to like play with energy and help people at the same time? Like, that's pretty cool.
I know it's amazing to do work that we actually have fun doing, right?
Hmm.
It
Yeah.
benefits everyone and us.
And don't get me wrong, like there are moments in those conversations where there are people with deep and heavy trauma that needs to
Yeah.
be released. But um and where the light language comes in is that it's because I speak it as well at the same time. It's like, it's just like healing and soothing, and there are even sometimes these moments where I feel myself almost laughing, like there's a shift even just in the process of
Yeah.
making it, where it's like you feel something burst open, um and that's always really beautiful. So
Okay.
yeah.
Well, so typically, can can someone get like the healing they need in one session, or is it over multiple sessions?
So that's a good question. So assuming that we're talking about the portal work, right? We do a session where we go deep and find those intentions.
Hmm.
And then what I'm actually creating is a series of healings.
Okay.
So what I'm actually channeling is a series of healings. And then there's one image that represents that. So that's done remotely, like without the client present. And
Okay.
then I have found that it's really helpful for us to meet again,
Hmm.
once they've received it and they start to get into the energy of it, um, just to see how things are going, to see if there's anything that needs to be shifted in them. And
Hmm.
then I don't know how this will be received, but this is true. Um, I will call the image up and go back into the energy of the image to match um, whatever comes up in the session so that they can sort of continue to release and receive. And I'm telling you, I don't know how it works, just like we don't know how, I mean, maybe you do. I don't know how so many of these things work, but I just know what I see, what I feel, what I experience, and I can experience the energy that way.
Yeah.
And you know, so I know it's happening.
Yeah. Well, beautiful. Well, so when did you decide? Because part of your bio is that you're a medical intuitive. So, what, how did that come about? And is this all part of all of these things you're talking about?
It is. It's a part of when I was learning the NLP and the DNA activation and the theta healing. Um, I also learned how to track energy.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just get information that way. So, if you have a headache, um, I'm just using this as an example, or even migraines, like it may originate in a completely different part of your body. And so I'm not medically trained, but
Mm-hmm.
I know that if there's, let's say something in your sacral chakra, you know, then I'll go in and track it. Okay, does this have to do with digestion? Does this have to do with menstruation? Does this have to do with an endocrine issue? And energetically, we can clear that.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, people get results from that.
Yeah.
It's sort of this in oh, sorry, go ahead.
Was just gonna ask. So, when you're receiving the information, like, what are your strongest clairs? Because I feel, I mean, clairsentience, obviously, because you're feeling that energy. But are you getting it visually, or yeah, how are you
It's a
getting the?
really good question, because I feel like, I mean, this goes back to when I first learned journeying, I feel like I'm an artist. I'm the one who's supposed to see the movies. And one of the things, you know what I'm saying? Like, you're in a cave and there's a woman inside, you know?
Yeah.
um, but one of the things that I actually do with a lot of people is they're looking to sort of become more intuitive. You know, it's a really big, I feel like it's a need, because once you know that you have it, it's like you just want to surrender to it, open to it, you know. Um, and it's really hard to be stuck in the middle, you know. Um, but people will like that. This is really help. I feel like this is really helpful maybe for some of your listeners too, because it's something that I do say a lot, you know. I don't hear the words, but I'm given the words and then
Mhm.
I say them. Um, I can feel something in my body and be like, what's going on with your right shoulder? You know, and I can feel energy releasing from like from somebody else's body.
Mhm.
Um, I channel, like I can talk and channel, but it's not the same as hearing the words. They just come into my awareness, you
Okay.
know?
Yeah.
Um, and then that's really I would say my main is using my hand to feel the energy,
Mhm.
mirroring it in my own body,
Mhm.
and then getting the information. And I feel like it is important for people to hear that, because we have these, like, if only I could, you know, feel more physically, if only I could see more, if only I could, you know, well, you know, you're given everyone's given what they need, and you know, it's possible to get more. And
Yeah.
yet, like, look at what you already have. Like, it's so amazing, right?
Right. Well, and I think that the more that people really hone in their natural clair abilities, then the other ones
Hmm.
come online easier.
Right.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so the the information or what you're channeling, do you have any idea what realm that's coming from or what group, or is it from source, or what, where is it coming
I
from?
sometimes know specifically.
Okay.
So I might get, you know, that it's a specific, like a parent or a grandparent of the person who I'm speaking with. Um, I sense when it's an angel, and I sometimes ask specifically which angel it is if I'm um either if they want to know, or if I sort of feel like I'm supposed to know, you know. Um and honestly, I thought how do I want to say this? So I just want to go back to the light language for a minute, because that is really powerful for me. And I guess I'm just going to share this. So when I first started speaking light language, like, I know what mine sounded like, right? And then there are some times, oh, and that's another thing, like some people. So there was this woman who I was working with on her intuition, and she said, I want to speak light language. And I was like, okay. And we did this stuff. I couldn't believe it. Like, I swear it was a week later, I was on Facebook and she was singing light language on, like, camera. I
Yeah.
was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. But the reason I'm telling this story is because every once in a while, when I'm channeling light language, it's like my language, whatever that is, you know.
Okay.
And it is, I do feel like it's universal. I don't feel like it's like we have language. Like, you wouldn't understand me if I was speaking, you know, from a different, like you said, realm, or, you know, part of the universe, whatever you, however you want to con- conceive of that. Um, but sometimes um, I start speaking like a foreign language because it's there.
Yeah.
language,
Yeah.
So so I don't know how that works, but it's cool.
Okay.
So yeah. So I think it's like it's all of it. I don't feel like sometimes it's just like everyone. It's just like it doesn't matter who it is. This is what we need to know.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's more specific, you know. So does that make sense?
It does to me.
Okay.
Hopefully, it to the audience too.
Okay.
Because it makes sense to me. I'm like, I don't know if I need to ask any more questions about it. Okay. Well, so you had mentioned earlier that you had developed or undiagnosed Lyme disease. So have you been able to heal your own body with these different methods?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Um so I feel like this is another reason that I'm so passionate about helping other intuitive healers is because one of the things that happened through my training was a lot of practice. And so I'm not going to say that I did it myself. It's like I'm learning to heal you and you're learning to heal me.
Yeah.
And there's something about when there are two people who come together,
Mhm.
it's like so much more powerful. So like while you're tapping into my energy and finding where my sort of whatever in my field needs to be cleared, I'm right there with you feeling around for it too. And
Mhm.
that there's some magic in there. I feel like that's different from when, you say, "Okay, I'm here. Can you heal me?"
Right.
It not that one is wrong and one is right or one is better or one is worse. It's just that's what it took for me,
Okay.
to be doing that work on myself and to be actually, I mean, this is kind of huge. I feel like as you're asking me this question to say, I need help. This is my thing. Will you look? You know what I'm saying? Like, um, I feel like I wasn't always a person who could do that.
Okay. Yeah.
But, you know,
Yeah. Well,
like,
and yeah, sometimes we don't have our voice and we've been conditioned not to ask for what we
or
need.
even more than that, like what are they gonna see? Like, what if
Okay.
they find something that I don't,
Okay. Well, that's an interesting frame of reference. And I guess
like
I could,
I need to, like I'm good, you
okay.
know.
Yeah.
This is me. But to be vulnerable enough to say there's more in here and I need your help to find it, you
Yes.
know?
Yeah.
Um that, you know, that's a certain different kind of power, surrender, whatever you want to call it, you know?
For
Yeah.
sure. Well, so, okay. So, can you give me just a couple of examples of how you've been able to help clients, just so that the audience can know, maybe if, like, oh, that's something I need help with. Let me
Yeah.
reach out to Liz.
Yeah, sure. I have one client, actually we did this with a portal, who was looking, in her words, to call in a twin flame.
Mm.
And she was in sort of this in between situation with a certain person, and like in a matter of weeks things fell into place in that relationship. um there's a lot of physical things
Okay.
um that have happened, from like debilitating digestive issues. Even there was a time when I thought I was going to be helping women with pregnancy, and I was able to help a woman conceive after she'd been trying for a long time, or we were able to call in what was needed, I prefer to say. Um, and And a lot of people, like I said, who have wanted to really step into their healing abilities.
Okay.
Um, so that would be, um, you know, I mean, I don't know. I feel like you've been doing this for a long time, and so it's sort of natural for you to be in this. But there are a lot of people with a lot of what if questions, like,
Mhm.
what if I am this? What if I can? What if I can't? What does
Mhm.
it mean to be a person who, you know? And so there's like an emotional level of support. There's the energetic history that they carry. There's their physical reality in this world that's giving them things that cause them to pause and hesitate when their soul is really telling them something different. And that's really what I love helping people with. But yeah, um, a lot of physical things, like I said, as well.
Yeah.
Body pain, things like that.
Okay.
Um, yeah.
So one of the things that um, that's I know about you. So you help people with strategies for opening intuitive channels, right? So do you do that? Like, can you give us some examples without giving away like
Oh, sure. Okay. So the biggest thing is trust.
okay.
Um, so I was working with this woman a while back, and I was given this example by one of her angels, and it really has to do with play, like,
Mm.
which is what I'm talking about now, which is, I finally found that place for myself to help others. But like when you're a kid and you're building a little block of
Mhm.
tower of blocks, um, you take a block and you put it there, and then you take another one and you put it on top, and so on. And then you're an adult and you want to build a little block of towers, and you say, okay, well, this one's yellow and it has a letter A on it. And this one's green. And I don't know, because it says D on that sign. Maybe we'll do the blue one first, right? And so like a kid just builds this tower, and that's it. Cool, you got a tower. Let's knock it down. But
Yeah.
you're like, maybe I can put two next to each other, and are they all level and even?
Yeah.
So when you're trying to open your intuition, and it sort of goes back to what we were talking about, like, do you hear? Do
Mhm.
you feel? Do you see? Is this thing
Yeah.
going on? Is this my third eye? Like, it's all yes. Like, whatever comes to you, it's like, that's cool. I started at the beginning. Like, my mom was like, I was just thinking about you, and answered the phone. That's your intuition, you
Yeah.
know? Um, and then, oh my gosh, why do I have this $300 in my pocket? Put it on top and just keep, like, everything is evidence that
Mhm.
you're using your intuition. When you get that feeling in your gut, say, that's my intuition. Okay, I might need to stop for a minute and think about what that's about. But the more you trust it, the more you're like living it, right?
Yeah.
Um and every this is a weird thing to say. I'm being kind of guided to say this. Like, everyone wants to be nurtured, right? Your intuition wants to be nurtured. It wants to be saying, great job, I see you. You're here with me. Let's do more of this,
Yeah.
Um, so that's one thing I would
Okay.
say.
Well, that's a huge one because I think that people they get so used to not trusting themselves or they're looking for external validation.
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
so really learning to know you have all the answers inside of you.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. And I just want to tell everybody that they're lovable, because that's a big one too, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's huge. Well,
yeah.
in our last little bit of time here, what else would you like to share? If you're guided to share any wisdom or if you want the audience to know something about you.
Hmm. Um, well, I mean, I wouldn't mind letting people know that I do these events called Portal Magic, um, which I mentioned earlier, where we get together as intuitive healers, and all are welcome, of course. Um, and it's a safe place. In fact, I don't even record them for this reason. It's a safe place to say, I want to work on this um, thing, or people can share their struggles, and yet the overarching tone is intended to be, I want to get to this place.
Okay.
And then I do as I would do for a client, for the group, and we set intentions, and I open the space, and I hand it out to everybody. Um, and I'm really enjoying doing that. And so I'd like to invite people to join me for that. Um, I do have it posted on my Facebook page pretty regularly, so that's a great way to find it.
Okay.
Um, and I'm always happy to meet people who might want, like you mentioned, strategies, who might want some more specific strategies, so we can get to know each other,
Mhm.
and then together decide if I have any offerings that are right for them.
Okay.
So I believe I sent you a link for that as well. Um, but Facebook is always a great way to find me anyway. So
Okay. Well, and for those listening or even watching, what's your website so that they can?
um, so the easiest way to get there is the Nestled Soul. It's all one word. TheNestledSoul
Okay.
.com.
Okay. The nestledsoul.com.
Yes.
Beautiful. Well, I just want to thank you so much for being here with me today. And for those of you watching or listening, make sure if you've heard anything, reach out to Liz. She does work remotely. And so wherever you are in the world, she can help you. So again,
Thank you so much, Lisa.
thank you. And for those listening or watching, I'll see you next time on Connection to the Cosmos. Aloha.